Hi Ukulele Magazine fans, Ukulele here with another quick tutorial. This one is on how to strum your ukulele. And these are 6 tips to effective strumming. So we'll start with number 1. Number 1 is location, location, location. So maybe you started playing the ukulele and you looked down and you said, hey, there's this big sound hole here. Why don't I try strumming over here? But what you might find is you get a kind of harsh sound when you strum right over the sound hole. So I always tell my beginning students especially to try for a different option here. Now what you may or may not know, the ukulele is an acoustic instrument, but I like to think that the ukulele comes with a built-in tone knob that depending on where you strum, you will get a different sound. So if I strum over the sound hole, I'll get something. If I strum towards a bridge, I'll get kind of that sound. And as I come down towards the neck, kind of get that. Notice the volume kind of went down on its own, and we kind of got a warmer sound. And I will always suggest when you start, try to aim somewhere between the end of the sound hole here and the end of the body. Somewhere in that sweet spot is that warmness, the correct amount of bounciness to bring you to that island paradise, you know? Over here, sometimes it's a little bit harsh, but over here, you can hear the waves in the background, you can hear the ocean, you can smell the ocean, and that's, in my opinion, the best place to strum. So location, location, location. Tip number 2 is the rules of thumb. So in addition to telling my students to start in this sweet spot location, I always like to start with the thumb because the thumb can produce some of the most amazing sounds out of the ukulele. So pairing together with that location is finding your thumb here, and you see that I'm bracing my fingers kind of against the body here, taking my thumb, and I'm just kind of pulling on the strings. One of the things I will preach about strumming the ukulele is that you don't want to hit your ukulele. You never want to kind of like percussively like attack the ukulele like that. Rather, imagine how a harpist might strum their harp. I was about to say ukulele. Imagine how a harpist will kind of, tinkle the harp a little bit with just the tips of their fingers like this, and think about how your thumb can do the same thing with a string. So almost like start with a roll. You're not always going to strum like that, but think about just kind of, again, tinkling your fingers against the strings. Now, one thing I like to do to kind of help this out is I take my thumb and I kind of pull on that top string. You know, I always try to start at that top string and pull the G. Notice that I'm kind of bending that string down a little bit. That is going to give us the proper amount of force, that bend, to then release and just drop the thumb, follow through to pretty much where your hand is. See, since my hand is down here at the body, I'm going to pretty much stop there where my hand goes. You can try it 2 ways. You can try a broken strum like this, and then kind of just drop your thumb with that same amount of pressure. So see, already you're probably getting a better sound than maybe you were doing before. If you've never done this kind of exercise, just this alone will give you a little bit more control in that strum. You want to think of like pulling the strings to set them in motion, kind of like a bow and arrow. You know, you pull that string of the bow and then you release, and the elasticity is what provides the force. So again, do not hit the ukulele. That's not very kind. Rather, move the strings along. Try to get the strings to vibrate on their own just by pulling and releasing that tension. All right, tip number 3, it's all in the wrist. So you just learned, how to do it with your thumb. And you see that, my wrist is activating. I'm not trying to, again, move my arm. So I like to say it's all in the wrist. Now, if we graduate to the index finger, that kind of gives us another option. And for most players, this will kind of be the most comfortable option, is using your index finger. And when we use our index finger, it's important to note that the motion of my finger contributes to the strum. I'm kind of like pulling my finger up like a hook and releasing it to kind of point straight. So I like to think of the term windshield wipers, like that I'm actually flexing my index finger to make the sound. Now, when you're strumming with your nail, you especially want to aim for the center of your nail. So maybe not the tip of your nail, but just right there on the center. And one way to practice is to take that nail, that part of your nail, and put it right on that G string and do the same thing we did with the thumb. Just try to push along the strings. But now, in addition to kind of pulling my index finger and releasing, I'm also thinking about the motion of my wrist to kind of contribute to the strum. And consider kind of like the motion you make when you turn a doorknob. That's the kind of wrist motion that we're looking for. And when you're using the wrist to strum, make sure that you are not going too far, that you're going like all the way to the bottom of the ukulele body. Like, I don't need to strum and follow through this far. I also don't need to start from a very high point. Much like when your thumb was over here, kind of starting, even the index finger does not need to start strumming from up here to attack. Rather, I can start really right next to that G string and simply rotate my wrist and then follow through not much farther than here. Just right there where the string ends. I like to think that your strumming kind of area is between the end strings, between the G string and the A string. Pretty much, when you're strumming, you just want to keep it there. You don't need to use your arm to. You'll just end up being tired. In any given song, you're strumming like 200 times. You're going to get tired doing that. So instead, it's all in the wrist, baby. Tip number 4 is ups and downs. We know that ukulele strumming has its ups and downs. And so we'll talk about how we get that motion to happen. Now with the thumb, of course, we've been practicing down. As we go up, we want to kind of drag there's one of two ways. One is we can take the nail of our thumb and kind of rake it up like that. Or we can use the side of our thumb to kind of get that. And my nails are a little bit too long for this motion, but if you have short nails, we'll talk about nails later, but if you have short nails, you might be able to get by going kind of the side of your thumb like that. It's important when you're controlling ups and downs to be able to be even with the sound of up versus down, and also to be kind of rhythmic, to have a control of the rhythm. So you might want to practice just going up by itself. And what I'll do is 4 downs and then 4 ups. Try it with me. Ready? Go. Down, 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 down. Now up, 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 up. Try again. Down, 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 up, 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 up. So you can try 4 downs and 4 ups again. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and up. 1, 2, 3, 4, and down. 1, 2, 3, and up. All right, so when it's time to learn strum patterns, it's really important to have that control of the down and ups, to not just willy-nilly, throw your hands in there. If you can exercise a little bit more control with the way you go down, you go up, you'll have more consistent and more rhythmic strum patterns. So one thing you might know about strum patterns is that our movements of down and up are generally consistent throughout strum patterns. So if you think about your kind of typical, what we call island strum, down, down, up, down, up, you might have just been thinking about down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, just on its own. But if we break that down, we're actually still moving at a consistent down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, even though the pattern sounds differently. So what I'll tell everybody is, what you should practice first is just a consistent down, up. So try that with me and just keep the beat. Ready, go. Down, up, 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 and just to the beat. Whether you're using your thumb or your index finger, if you can keep this consistent, you'll have a better strum pattern. And so if I was to say the island strum, it would fit in with this down, down, up, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. And now if I actually kind of whisper the strums that I'm missing for the island strum, it'll sound like this. Down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up. And now I'll take that out and that's really the tip to a consistent strum pattern, is to make sure that that down up motion is really secure, so that when you add the strum pattern, you're not kind of changing the motion. My thing about strum patterns, and I have a whole separate thing about strum patterns, is no sudden movements. So keep your movement consistent, and that starts with making the downs and the ups consistent as well. Tip number 5 is to swing or not to swing. So we just talked about ups and downs, and we did this in a consistent way, a very metered, what I like to call robotic way. Mechanical sound. That's what we call a straight rhythm. The other thing that we often do in ukulele is we do a swing rhythm. And the way a swing rhythm works is that it's actually divided into beats of 3. So there are 2 ways we can think about counting that. One is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and what we do is we put the down ups in a very specific way. In the numbers way, we go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, down. So you want to constantly be thinking 1, 2, 3, 2. You want to be counting to yourself 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or if you're using the kind of one and approach, you'll always go down on the number 1 and then you'll go up on the 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so when you're strumming in this way, it's important to have that beats of 3 kind of in your mind, but also to continue to be kind of loose with the strum. That we have kind of a heavy part, that's the down. And then the up is a little bit more lackadaisical. It's not late, it's not like out of time, but it's a little bit softer. It's almost like a means to the next beat. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I tell my students, it's like you're on a horse. You want to have that heaviness of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's very, very common to get lost in between the straight strum and the swing. Very common. If you did not realize that I did 2 different things there, it's okay. A lot of people feel that way. So it's important to kind of like test yourself and make sure you can count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And with the straight strum, we would just count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And tip number 6 is kind of a bonus tip here, and this is to nail or not to nail. A lot of people have questions about, should I grow my nails or should I not? And I will tell you, as we say in the ukulele world, like, it's up to you. Or, everybody plays a little bit different. A lot of professionals, I will say, grow out their nails for various reasons. One, when you're finger picking or when you're doing lead playing, it's a lot easier to be accurate when you have nails. But some people do believe that that is a sacrifice of sound when you are strumming because the strum tends to sound a little bit harsh with the nail. As I mentioned earlier with the thumb, you get this nice soft sound. So some players, especially Hawaiian players, I think I've seen this the most in hula groups and things like that. Most people will actually swear by the thumb only, like the whole time. I grew up playing guitar with a pick, and I feel very comfortable using my index finger as a pick. So that's kind of why I continue to go with my index finger personally. Now, to go back to the questions of nails, a lot of people will shape their nails to for ukulele playing, and really there's no rhyme or reason to exactly how you do this. I would say the only rule of nail is for you to make sure that you round the edges of your index finger. Again, I'll try to show this on the camera. You know, what we'll try to do is make sure that you file, you know, get yourself a nice nail file. Just saw Aldrin Guerrero use like a crystal nail file. That's amazing. I'm going to try that. You know, you kind of round the edges of the nails to make sure that, you know, the way the nails kind of grow is that there's usually a kind of like an edge around the side of the nail. And that will catch on the strings as you're going down or up, you know, that kind of square edge. So instead, we want to file the sides of the nails and then almost create a little bit of a cat claw, you know, like a point. Now, it doesn't have to be so sharp that you'll stab yourself when you're picking your nose, but, you know, something that is kind of like has a tip so that when you use your nail on the strings, you actually grab with that kind of edge or tip of your nail rather than the edges. So play around with it. You're gonna want to get yourself, like I said, a nice nail file. Try it out. I remember just I had gone without nails for a really long time, and then I met Jake Shimabukuro, and I shook his hand, and I saw his thumbnail, and I was like, I want to play like Jake. His thumb was like, you know, a long, sharp thumbnail. I was like, well, I want to play like Jake, so I'm going to try it. I just spent, you know, a week or two growing out my nail, try to file it down, saw what it was, and really, really started to like the different sounds you can make with the nail. So a lot of classical guitar players, a lot of ukulele players will swear by their nail techniques. Some people actually get fake nails, acrylic nails. I go au natural with mine, which is hard sometimes because you break your nails from time to time. But for the most part, it's been a really good experience to have them. And I was telling my students the other day that, you know, I grew up playing guitar with a pick, and I often lose my pick. You know, it's one of those things you buy 144 in a box, and you'll lose every single one of them and not know where to find them under the couch, you know, somewhere. And instead, I carry my picks with me. So there they are. Never going to lose them unless I break them. And that's it. That's your tips for effective ukulele strumming, how to strum your ukulele. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Yukon.